One thing they're also going to push too is making sure that conservatives, Republicans are censored. You saw it from Steven Crowder being banned off YouTube for literally up to, I believe the midterm elections here. Sav Says has had 2 of her videos removed that have over 600,000 views. We're being shadow banned, or what I believe to be shadow banned here on the Bob Brad Show, which we covered on Sunday. So they are censoring conservatives here. You have Elon Musk buying Twitter that hopefully will bring back a lot of the accounts like Jordan B. Peterson, like the Babylon Bee. But they are in fact going after conservatives. And one of the things that they did do last election, and they still are doing, is citing misinformation on Facebook and other social media websites from conservative posts or whatever it may be. Even though it was factually correct, they're still going to cite it as misinformation because they're the censorship gods. They're the arbiters of truth. Remember that like disinformation or misinformation truth board that they were trying to put through a while ago that fell apart because people lost their crap? Well, you have Phil Wegmann of Real Clear Politics, the other gladiator here, folks. We try to come up with nicknames for these just great men, these gods. They're not really gods, but you get what I'm saying. They do a fabulous job of speaking on behalf of the American people here. They're gladiators, folks. They're both gladiators. They're both in the ring, putting up the dukes for us here, asking the questions that really matter. Well, he asks her basically this question of, look, are you guys going to sit there and flag misinformation again on social media accounts? And this is the response. Let's go ahead and roll it.
Go ahead, Phil.
Thank you. Jen Psaki said from that podium in summer of 2021, quote, "We are flagging problematic posts for Facebook that spread disinformation." Can you tell us whether the White House is still flagging social media posts for disinformation, and are you submitting those to Facebook through a special portal?
Can you say a little bit more?
Yeah, there was reporting in The Intercept about opportunities for the federal government to identify for social media companies different posts that contained what was perceived as misinformation about the origins of COVID, the vaccine, other things as well, such as Ukraine or the U.S. withdrawal from Afghanistan.
Yeah. Look, I'll say this: the administration. The Biden administration remains fully committed to our mission to protect the security and resilience of our elections and safeguard election infrastructure. That includes combating disinformation. That is something that we are committed to. We work to protect that, protect Americans from disinformation that threatens the homeland, including malicious efforts spread by foreign adversaries, began before the Disinformation Governance Board was established. In fact, some of that work began before this administration. So, I want to be very clear that cross-agency work continues to this day. Don't want to get ahead of anything else. This is a Department of Homeland Security, so I would refer you to them.
So you are flagging misinformation?
I don't have anything more to add. This is a Department of Homeland Security that I would.
That's very sus, folks, because we've already seen kind of some of this taking place, and it should worry all of you of like, well, this is a DHS thing. But the question is always geared towards the president and what's the president as well as the executive branch going to do. As far as I'm aware, the DHS is under the executive branch. So what are they going to do? You should be prepared for this type of question and just refer the DHS to everything. A little bit sus, and I think they are going to sit there and go after both disinformation, and if you notice, Phil Wegmann changed his wording there from disinformation to misinformation, because the main question was about the disinformation in conjunction with what was asked supposedly to Jen Psaki, her predecessor, who was clearly way better than she is at her job, about disinformation. My question is not so much about the disinformation, but about the misinformation, because disinformation is when you knowingly throw something out there to try and sway somebody else's opinion regarding a narrative that you want to push, whereas misinformation was, hey, you know what, the statistics changed on something. You had an old statistic posted even though a new stat was there. That would be misinformation, but there's nothing wrong with it at the end of the day. There's a stats change, but they're going to sit there and flag it and go, oh, look at what's going on. This person's trying to push a narrative. It's 100% incorrect, even though in actuality it wasn't. It just could have changed over the course of time. But that's what they're going to do. It should scare you when the government gets into trying to sit there and tell you and be the arbiters of truth of speech, you guys, because that's never gone away in the history of mankind.
Does the White House participate in the secret government censorship portal, though? I think that was part of the question. Does the White House submit examples of alleged disinformation and misinformation for Facebook to censor through this portal?
No.
Okay, I love that. I like that where she was clear, no, we're not going to do that. Now, could that be a lie? It very well could be. And I love that that gentleman followed up because there was more information in Phil Wegmann's question that I think meets the eye, and he kind of opened that up for Phil Wegmann. And what I believe Phil was really talking about at the end of the day, I love that that guy jumped in there and kind of snuck in a question really fast. Let's continue.
I wanted to follow up because you've spoken at length about the threat that those who deny documented truth about our elections pose. And some critics have raised this, so I want to see if you can maybe square the president's current rhetoric when it comes to elections with what he said in January during a press conference when he said of those midterms, quote, "The increase in the prospect of them being illegitimate is in proportion to not being able to get those reforms passed." Obviously, those voting reforms did not pass Congress. So is he confident that the coming midterms are going to be legit? How are those two things congruent?
Yeah, this is something that you're talking about, the Jen reference.
No, the president said in January.
Oh, right. But I think did you ask Jen this question as well?
I may have. It's been a
while. So just to clear this up, because I think you've asked me this question before, Jen Psaki briefed the following day after this press conference and answered that question that you asked about the president and his statement from the press conference the day before. And she said, I talked to the president about this last night and this morning. He was not intending to cast doubt on the legitimacy of the 2020 election. He was actually attempting to make the opposite point, which is that in 2020, despite COVID, despite many attempts to suppress the vote, a record number of voters, Democrats and Republicans, independents too, turned out in the face of a pandemic. And we saw that with our very own eyes, and you all reported this. And election officials made sure they would vote and have those votes counted. And this is how Jen Psaki responded to your very question.
So even though those voting reforms did not pass Congress, the president is expecting the midterm elections to be legitimate.
Say that again, I'm
So
sorry.
even though his preferred voting reforms did not pass Congress, the president is expecting that the coming midterm elections will be legitimate.
Oh, yes, that is a yes.
Okay, well, there you have it. Hell, giving clear answers rather than just going on this diarrhea, cockamamie answer spiel vomit that she does, where she just rambles for 2 minutes. We're actually getting some clear answers from the administration. You heard it from the horse's mouth. If something goes awry here, and what's expected to happen is obviously a red tsunami, a red wave, and we saw that from yesterday's podcast that we did here, which is odd that I literally had the same title as Ben Shapiro's show, even though we upload hours before Ben Shapiro's podcast goes live. I have no idea what the title is going to be. We had the exact same title. We're just on point with the Daily Wire, folks. But look, we got clear answers. Phil Wegmann had a great question regarding the integrity of the election. Are they basically going to accept it? And you heard it from the horse's mouth that they're going to, folks. So we'll sit there and actually see if it's true. We got it on recording, and obviously we'll bash them if they go against the election. Go, oh, well, it was the Russians. It was the Iranians. It was somebody else. I hope you enjoyed that clip from the Bald Brad Show. If you did, make sure to hit that subscribe button so you can stay up to date on all our future content.